Hi guys, this is Kimmy, and this is a video I've been wanting to make for a while. I decided to do it today just because I'm dressed up, and why not? I was actually at my friend Celeste's 50s theme party. She's celebrating a year on her own with a disability. She chose to make the leap at 34, which I think is probably a bigger leap than I made at 18 because I didn't really have a hell of a lot of choice. The situation I was in, it was do or die. She chose it, after having people around who may have supported her a little bit better than what I had growing up. You chose to make the leap, Celeste, so that's commendable. I didn't choose it so much. Anyway, what I want to talk about is being social with a disability. I have cerebral palsy, and I've had it all my life. It can be an awkward condition. I kind of feel like when I'm in a situation with new people, I feel like I'm in a fishbowl and like they're looking at me, even if they're not. Well, maybe now sometimes they are, depending on how I'm dressed. Today I was at a 50s party, but I would wear this outfit on a daily basis just because. And so now maybe they're looking at me that way. But growing up, I just felt like I was in a fishbowl. Not that I'm not a social person. I've always kept my friends. It's just taken a long time for me to warm up to them, for the most part, I think. With the exception of the few kids that I met when I was young, Kevin, who I was completely in love with from day one, because how could I not be? And Kevin, I can just see your head going. But you were the cutest thing ever, really. You still kind of are. It's a personality thing. Don't let it go to your head, okay? Anyway, so, a lot of the people I see with disabilities, Celeste, they're not like us. They don't have social lives with people that are not disabled. They socialize with each other, if at all, it seems, and that's about it. I don't mean to poo-poo that, because they are socializing, but, it's not exactly healthy not to mix with the walkies, I don't think. But, some of them don't. And for me, like I said, around my birthday, one of the reasons that my 5th birthday is so celebrated among my friends and I, that I've known for a long time, other than the discovery of the New Kids on the Block, is that it was the first birthday party I had where the courtyard was big enough for me to invite everyone, chairs and all, and all the neighbor kids came out and just sort of joined us, and we all kind of interacted with each other, and everybody treated everyone else like a human being, and it was just casual and relaxed, and a lot of us became and stayed friends that way. I know Kevin and Kara, you guys probably met that way, because Kara, you were there when I turned 6 and got the first set of Supergirl pajamas, so I'm thinking you probably met Kevin that way. I don't know. I've always been able to talk to my friends. Once they're my friends, I tend to get really comfortable with them. And I don't like going outside of my social circle. I'll just be straight up. I feel awkward. And it's the disability, I think, a lot of it. And it goes back to what my teacher, Mrs. Sipe, used to say, is that, when we were little, it wasn't at all encouraged in mainstream society for us to go out and be among people. And so my 5th birthday party, when that happened and everybody was invited and you all came, yes, hi Samara, you guys came, it was a big deal for all the kids that I went to school with at Hoover. Because, you know, like Mrs. Sipes said, they needed to be included. And it was great for her to have them come back into the classroom and just talk about it and go on about it and have that experience of being normal children. So if any of you guys are on my list now and you were present at that party, you're welcome, I guess. Although I have to say it wasn't really my doing. I was 5. It just kind of happened. But it sort of set the template for the rest of my parties, and that's kind of why I do that now. I want everybody to be relaxed and just sort of chill out. It's in that happy spirit that I'm hanging out with all you guys. But in the 80s, in the beginning, it was not encouraged. There's one particular story I'd like to share with you. I was at what used to be Pick and Save next to the old Kmart. Now it's Big Lots, you know, on Cherokee, with my sister Erlene and Sabrina and my cousin Mandy. And what it was is my grandma used to give us change for doing chores around the house, whether it was helping with the dishes, which Sabrina and I did. I just rolled right on up to the sink. And one of us would wash and one of us would, you know, dry. And I folded a lot of wash rags and underwear and napkins and things that would fit in my hand. And wiped off a lot of tables, things like that. Snapped green beans, whatever, you know. I did whatever the disability would allow, but all of us did things, and we would get money. And then once we got enough, we would go to Big Lots, all of us together with whomever was taking us. This particular day in 1985, it happened to be my sister that was with us, and Grandma and my mom, I think. And we would just go and spend our money. We were allowed to pick out one toy each, and that's what we did. We usually ended up with matching toys, because that's the way it went. Things were always in threes. But this particular day, I remember I must have been about 3 years old. I don't think I was quite 4. Sabrina was pushing me in this chair that we now refer to as the Orange Nightmare. And maybe I'll put in a picture so you guys can see why. And she and Mandy and I were just walking kind of around trying to pick out some toy for ourselves. It ended up being a teddy bear change purse that we got. I still have it somewhere, but we each had one. And that's what it was. So anyway, while we were looking, these 2 elderly ladies just stared at us and were staring at me and Sabrina and Mandy, and one just said to the other, "Can you believe that? They shouldn't let it out. In my day, they kept things like that in the attic or the basement." And they looked Sabrina dead in the face, and they told her that she was going to catch a disease from being out with me, or get sick, or catch what I had, and that I shouldn't be allowed out. Well, you guys know Sabrina, and she wasn't very different as a little girl, even though then she must have been about 5. She yelled at them in the best way that a 5-year-old could. And then we all just kind of burst into tears. Like, she was really upset. I was really upset. And that is one of the first times I ever remember feeling consciously different and feeling really horrible about my disability and ashamed to be who I was or the way I was. And I guess that experience, you know, it kind of sticks with you. It was sort of awful. I cried, Sabrina cried, as I recall, my sister and mom went over and berated these two ladies. Had they been an ice cream cone, you know, they would have melted into the floor. It was bad. I mean, she gave them what for, but it was just a horrible experience that it never left my consciousness. And I don't think Sabrina's either, because after it happened, she was even more gung-ho about sticking with me and pushing me around and making sure everybody knew that I belonged to her and nobody else was any better than me, and I was her aunt and she was proud of it, and she didn't care if I gave her a disease. That wasn't how it worked. But of course, that doesn't happen nowadays so much. You don't have that anymore, thank God. At least not that I've seen to that extent. But what you do have is generalizations that people make about people with disabilities. And I find it's worse when we only hang out with each other. They assume then that we only hang out with each other, and they're less inclined to mix with us as human beings and maybe talk about us as if we're not there. Does that make any sense to you guys? Because I had some of those forced outings with only other disabled people as a teenager. And you know, it was weird. I didn't like it. It wasn't my cup of tea. It was part of being a client of the Valley Mountain Regional Center as a kid. Something my mom set up, and I'm not sure why exactly. I mean, I had friends at home, but it was just weird because we were on a group outing with each other at this place called Naughty Nick's Pizza in Stockton with people who really, a lot of them weren't that much older than we were, and they were assuming authority over us and walking with us everywhere we went and listening to every word of our conversations like we were babies. And it was just horrible. I found the whole thing insulting, and so did the kids, you know, that were in that group with me that had their wits about them as well. The whole thing was just insulting, and I felt that we deserved better than that. One thing I will say, though, we had one outing with United Cerebral Palsy because of Valley Mountain, where we went to Manteca Scaregrounds, and Linda Blair was there. So that was an interesting night because I'm a really big fan of The Exorcist. Most of the people in that group were not, but I'm a little different. So I was very excited about, you know, having Linda Blair there, and that's a memory that I have. That was an okay night. But on the whole, no, I didn't like it. That, and, you know, there are people with disabilities in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and they're still doing that. That's their outlet for socializing, and I'm not trying to knock it, and I'm sorry if it sounds like it, but it's just sad to me. Because if they're not allowed out and you know, their parents don't make an effort to get them to mingle with normal people, they're perpetual children, more or less. If not mentally, then certainly emotionally, because everybody needs that chance to develop. You have to be around other people and different kinds of people. And even me being socially awkward, even a little bit today, Celeste, at your party, you know, I still kind of have to force myself to get out there because I'm just as normal as anyone else, and I have to remember that. But it's not always an easy thing. And Shannon, I know I've known you for most of my life, but as far as we're concerned, I don't think my disability ever came up on a regular basis. I remember one discussion or two about it. And that was about it. You were just kind of there, and you came up to me all the time, and there was no way I wasn't going to be your friend. We had so many things going on and so many things in common, like you said. There's no way we weren't going to be buddies. And we were obsessed with Ghostbusters, so holy hell. In me, you found another weirdo that had paranormal experiences, so yay. We had one conversation that I really clearly remember about the chair. Then you asked me why I was in it, and I explained that my muscles didn't work. Right. And then you asked me if I was going to marry another person in a chair, and I said no. No, even then I knew I didn't want to marry a disabled person. At that time, I wanted to marry Michael J. Fox. And that's ironic now, because he's becoming disabled with Parkinson's. But poor guy. Anyway, yeah, so that's kind of where I was sitting. But with you around, and then later Kevin, and, whoever else came into my life, I knew that there were opportunities open to me with, the men that would come into my life. And that's another insulting question I always get when I am dating or I do have a boyfriend, is that, people say, oh, what's wrong with him? Is he in a wheelchair too? Hell no. I have never dated a guy in a chair, and unless he's Superman, again, another very ironic pun. Are you laughing, Celeste? I'll bet you are. Unless he's Superman, there is no way on earth he's going to turn my head. And the reason is what I just said. Like, every man I've met in a chair, they have this social issue to where they're not socially adept, and they're not emotionally mature, and I don't want to be someone's mommy. But then I guess it makes me a hypocrite, because at the same time, I'm mad because people make that assumption about me, when the opposite is true. Every single boyfriend I've ever had in my life has been walking, and even the one that had a slight disability, he still walked. He just had it from a case of meningitis as a kid that he almost died from, and he had suffered residual effects. He happened to be a really big jerk. I don't think that had anything to do with it. He was just a jerk, period. But, yeah, he's the only one. And I don't think that really counts. But, no. I hate it when people make the assumption that I would only date a man with a disability, or that we, as a whole community, would or should only date each other. For me, that's not how it works. I just don't see how that would work. Me with another disabled person, like, isn't that kind of compounding the problem anyway? Physically? No. Like Chris used to say, how's that gonna work? A romantic interlude with third-party intervention? I don't think so. Awkward. Anyway, you guys get the idea, right? It's not easy. It never will be, but I make myself do it. Bye.